are live. Welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. So, we're going to dive right in. Today, we're going to talk about something that is not talked about enough, and that is the fact that there is so much grief that comes with leaving an abusive relationship. And people don't really understand that. And it makes sense, right? Because if you haven't gone through it, you're not going to quite get it. And if you haven't experienced it, or if you kind of think that you relate, but you don't really know, what I'm referring to, let's think about the different ways that we're grieving an abusive relationship. So, number one, when you when you leave an abusive relationship, the biggest thing that you grieve is the person, right? Like you were in that relationship for a reason. You were with that person for a reason. And that reason wasn't because they were terrible to you. The reason you were with them is because you cared about them. The reason you're with them is because you loved them, even. And so we stay in these relationships. And then once we leave, there's a grief. It's the grief that you're not going to be with that person anymore. It's the grief that you are done with that relationship and there's no hope. But on top of that, there is a hair on my face. So sorry, y'all. But on top of that, you're also grieving who you thought they were, who you wanted them to be. Because a lot of the times we stay for trauma bonds, we stay because sometimes it's dangerous to leave for all of those reasons. But another reason that we stay is because we're just holding out hope that maybe those honeymoon moments, those positive moments, the times when we saw a glimpse that maybe they could really care. We saw that little glimpse that says maybe that they could be the person, maybe they could be the man, maybe they could be the woman, maybe they could be the partner that we wanted them to be. And we saw that and we were holding out hope for that. And leaving means that we're never going to get that. It's grieving the loss of the hope that you felt. It's grieving the loss of the person you wanted them to be. It's grieving the loss of the person that they were at the beginning of the relationship, because it doesn't start abusive, y'all. We grieve the person that they were at the beginning of the relationship, and now that it's ending, there's all of that grief in between there. And yes, they were terrible to you. And yes, you should not go back. And yes, remember that why you left. But you also need to make sure that you are letting yourself grieve. You need to make sure that you are taking the time to let yourself feel those feelings. And for someone who hasn't gone through it, it can be really difficult because it's all right, and we're back. My internet cut out for a sec. But they did all of these things, and the person's just not understanding why you even miss them. And they're and like I said, if you haven't gone through it, you don't understand. Sorry, the internet going out kind of made me lose my train of thought there. But when you haven't gone through it, you don't get it. And that's not saying that it's a good thing or the things that they did to you are good or that you appreciated being abused. It's the fact that you are a human with human emotions and you miss them. You miss the person that you wanted them to be, and that's okay. Another thing that you have to grieve is recognizing and reconciling the fact that they could not be the person that you needed them to be. They didn't care about you enough to change. They didn't care about you enough to do all of those things. They could not step up and be the person that you needed. And you have to grieve the fact that they couldn't or wouldn't do that. And the other part of grief, and this is not, I don't want to say the hardest because everyone's experience is different, but a massive part that we have to let ourselves grieve is grieving the person that we were before the abusive relationship. There's never a way to go back and not be abused. There's not a way to go back and not live through the abuse. Absolutely, we can heal, and absolutely, we can find healing and freedom, and absolutely, we should move on with our lives. Yes. But we can never be the person that we were before the relationship. We can never be the person that we were before the trauma took place. We can't be that person again. And there is a lot of grief involved in that. Because sometimes what happens is we leave the abusive relationship and we don't even know who we are. And we so desperately want to go back to who we were. We just want to be the person that we were before we experienced it. And then there comes a realization that we're never going to be that person again. And that hurts. And it hurts bad. And it hurts deep in your soul in a way that it feels like you're being ripped apart from yourself. And that grieving process, all of this can take as long or as short of a time as it needs to be. But particularly the part when we have to grieve ourselves, when we feel like we look back and it's not even us, it's like we're watching a movie. We're watching a movie of somebody else's life and we don't even feel connected to that person anymore. That is painful. And there's also grief involved for those of us who, and this is not worse or better, we're not playing the comparison game, okay? But there's also the fact that those of us life before abuse, where maybe our childhood is not clear because we went through stuff and our brain's blocking stuff out, or maybe we had someone do things to us when we were young and we realize there's not even a person to look back and grieve. There's not even a place for us to look back on and wish we were, because we don't understand. We don't know a life without trauma and abuse. We don't know what it means to be separated from that. And so there's a grief of that as well. And when you choose healing, when you choose to move forward, you then have to grieve the loss of the pain. So a lot of people don't understand and they judge. And I'm not going to lie, like I used to be this person. I used to judge very heavily. But once I learned and once I was able to understand it in this way, it really helped. There are a lot of people who have chronic illness or who have chronic pain, like me. I've got fibromyalgia, I've got arthritis, I've got autoimmune stuff that goes on. And there's a lot of people who experience that and they want to feel better, but at the same time, they don't really want to heal. I'm not saying this for everybody, so don't come at me. But there are some people that don't really want to heal. They don't really want to lose that pain because, yes, the pain sucks and it's terrible being in pain. And we want to be able to do these things that the pain is holding us back from, but it's a comfortable uncomfortable. Because even though we don't like the pain, we know that the pain is always there. It's there when we wake up and it's there when we go to bed. We don't know how bad it's going to be, but we know that it's going to hold us back at some point. We know that it's going to tear down a good day. We know that if we feel good for 5 minutes, we might pay for it for the next week. And the idea of losing that pain and not having that there is brand new. And you don't really know how to experience life without that pain right there. And then also now you're able, let's say all the pain is gone, and now you're able to go run a marathon. You're able to date freely. You're able to go shopping. You're able to leave the house. You're able to go on a road trip. You're able to do all these things. And now you have nothing holding you back from that. And now instead of, I wish I could do that, it's, oh my God, I can. And yes, that's exciting. But now, how do I live life now? What do I do now? How do I handle this now? What do I do? What about all the bad things that could happen? What's going to happen when I wake up tomorrow? If I really believe that the pain isn't going to be there, what is going to be there? What's going to fill the void of the pain? And this is why people who end up healing themselves or they do get better, they self-sabotage. And I'm not saying this is anyone's fault. This is brain stuff, okay? And they go back to that place of pain. It was comfortable. All right, I think we're back. The friggin' internet. It's constant and it's comfortable. And even though we don't like it, it's always, always there. And that is the same way when it comes to healing from abuse. Is that once we do choose healing, we have to grieve everything. We have to grieve who we thought we were. We have to grieve that we're not going to be this person who lives in fear anymore. We have to grieve. And sometimes this grieving process can happen a year after you choose healing. And all of a sudden you look back and you don't even feel connected. I went through this personally. When I woke up one day, I don't even know when it happened. This was a couple of years ago. And I realized I don't even feel connected to the person who went through abuse. Like, I know that I did, and I know that I can connect with people, and I know what it was like. But at the same time, when I think back on those memories, I don't even know who she is. I feel like I'm looking at someone else's life through a screen, and I don't even feel connected to her. And that, in and of itself, is painful. But just because it's painful doesn't mean we shouldn't feel it. The longer we run from our grief, the longer we tell ourselves that we shouldn't grieve, the longer that we say we don't deserve to grieve, the longer that we say we all of this stuff, the more painful it's going to be. And I understand that's hard. Like, facing the grief is really hard because it's going to hurt so bad. And let me tell you, that was my biggest fear. That was the reason I avoided healing at all costs. I was like, I would rather be miserable and know what I'm going to feel like than go through whatever pain is awaiting me. But let me tell you this. Going through the pain, whether it lasts a day, whether it lasts a week, whether it lasts a month, whether it lasts a year, facing that pain and going through it and feeling it head on, all at, like letting yourself just rip off the Band-Aid and go through that, yes, it's terrible and it's awful. But then you have the whole rest of your life. Instead of being bogged down and you're slogging through quicksand, all of a sudden you're swallowed up by the quicksand for a time. But then all of a sudden you're strong enough, you come out of it, and now you can run freely and you can move freely and you can do what you want. You can do what you love. You can go after your dreams. And I don't want to act like this is easy, because it's not. I don't want to come off like it just happens overnight. I don't want to act like one day you're going to wake up and it's just done. No. Like, letting yourself grieve and the active choice to let yourself grieve is going to be one of the most difficult decisions you make. And you have to continue making that decision as you move through the grieving process. You have to continue to let yourself process through as things suck. And you have to keep making that choice to say, I'm going to let myself feel today. I'm going to let myself feel. All right. So sorry about the internet, y'all. Once we let ourselves grieve and once we push past that, there is a level of freedom that you won't even, like, that I can't even explain. All of a sudden, you're not carrying this weight. And I'm not saying that after that, everything is easy and perfect and hunky dory and you have no other problems. No. But what I'm saying is now you can move freely instead of being stuck under the weight of all of that grief. You are able to truly experience freedom and healing. So I know that this was a lot, and I know that this was heavy, and I know that some of this is easier said than done, but I promise you, if you choose healing, if you choose to let yourself grieve, future you is going to thank you. If you have any questions, make sure that you comment below. I am here for you. You can reach out. I'm Carly.Lynn right here on Instagram. My DMs are always open and I'm super active there. Go send me a DM if you need. Comment below. I am here to help. And if you want more content around the grieving process, I am more than happy to do so. Just let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, boo. And never forget that you are strong, you are capable, you are intelligent, and boo, you are so freaking worthy. And it's okay. It's okay to grieve. And in fact, it's part of the process. You've got this, boo. And I believe in you. We'll talk soon.